Forward together. Forward together. Let me hear you way back there. Forward together. Now, we're not happy about all the draconian laws and all the junk that's going on up in the General Assembly and in various counties, but we are happy about what we see out here today. How many people are happy about this? How many people are happy about registering folks and getting to the polls to vote? So we're going to do a little movement song right now, and it's something that everybody knows, but I want you to say it with me. We shall not be moved.
We shall not be moved.
Let them hear you in Raleigh if you can. We shall not be moved.
We shall not be moved.
Just like a tree planted by the shall not be moved. Now sing it with me. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree planted by the water. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not, oh, just like a tree planted by the water.
pleased and proud and so excited to welcome you back to this Mountain Moral Monday. I will be your mistress of ceremonies this evening. I want to remind you, if you are using a smartphone, please use the hashtag Moral Monday to tweet and Facebook and get all these pictures and all your selfies and all this fun and fabulous, all these speakers. Get those out. See, we've got a selfie going on right here. We got to tell the story. Help me tell the story, people. It is just so exciting to be here again, and I want to start out by welcoming our youth, some of our youth voices here today. We are proud to be joined by the Slam Asheville Youth Group, who have, as I understand it, written a poem just for this occasion. And as we always say, the children and the youth and the young folks, they are the future. And so we lead off our program with Slam Asheville Youth. Please give them a big round of applause.
Would you spare me over for another year?
They say the wilderness here be tamed,
that the zebra-striped blindness of the South is extinct.
But those with skin of sundown get no place.
They say that Jim Crow is dead and buried, lying 6 feet under with grandfather clauses. They say these things read like history here.
But so-called saviors whisper sweet immortality while planning our funerals. Claim they ain't afraid to let their skin touch ours, but put on white gloves and tuck us neatly in the corners of this city.
We have wrapped black neighborhoods in freeways.
Ain't it funny that they look like asphalt nooses?
It's harder to see any problems at 60 miles an hour.
We don't talk about injustice here. Doesn't make for polite conversation, so just hush, boy. Shh.
That dog won't hunt, boy.
Shh. Best forget what you said, like we forget that you're here.
Oh, death, how you're treating me. You've closed my eyes so I can't see.
Round here,
Good manners don't even go skin deep.
took the time to stitch white hoods into placemats, but still took care to seat y'all at the other end of the table.
How could somebody so lost make me look at my home like overgrown field and hidden tombstone? Bleached apparitions forget to mind the street signs and tattered pavement. They roam too far.
6 feet too far, south side too far.
Remember, don't cross that line, son.
I'll fix your feet till you can't walk. I'll lock your jaw till you can't talk.
Power lines stretch for miles around here.
Jerry-rigged from electric crucifixes that claim to bring light back to blackness.
But the heat of burning crosses still inch up our backs.
There's no face to this fight anymore.
Grand Dragons don't patrol the entrance to Section 8 housing.
Instead, street signs read,
Dead end.
And equality lies in wait between lines of ligature legislation.
If we no longer need shallow graves for keep people in their place.
All that is required for lynching these days is a legal loophole, a handgun, and the right moment.
It's hard for us to learn where we come from when marble gods still speak in whip cracks.
When scars still reek like braille on mahogany skin.
When hate is still holstered on the hips of tightened Bible belts in the South.
Old times are not forgotten.
Eye contact is expected here.
Don't look at someone you're not prepared to accept
horizon. Keep your head down, so that picket fence is as white as the lies we tell ourselves. Look away, so that summer's show can still grow in our fields. Look away,
So that Dixieland anthems can still ring across our hills.
we look away, so we don't have to acknowledge that the South is still on fire.
That the same kerosene may still run in our veins.
That our skin is mere soot in the wake of arson.
That we may never breathe the smoke clear of our lungs.
Because we know
That even if the house we grew up in is burning,
It is still our home.
Well, thank you. I'd like to invite Marvin Chambers and Isaac Coleman, who are representing the Asheville chapter of the NAACP.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Marvin and I chair the Political Action Committee for the local chapter of the NAACP, and Marvin is our money keeper. He's the treasurer for our local chapter. And we're here to let you all know that chapters have sprung up all around Western North Carolina. In places I never thought there would be an NAACP chapter. And Marvin is going to recognize those chapters right now for you.
Thank you, Isaac. I'm trying to make my entrance just like the people who just left. I have the distinct pleasure to let you maybe I need to raise it up a little bit. How's that? I want you to let you know that jeez. Try this one. That's the way to make a real entrance, right? I want to let you know that there are many people who are working very hard to make freedom an actuality. And we have chapters, as was mentioned by Isaac, that I would never have dreamed would be working in areas. And I want you to know that as you have assembled here with the People's Assembly, that there are many who are seated around and with you who are members of the NAACP from many various counties, particularly those some east and some west. But as we look at the ones who are far west, we find that we have Hendersonville, which is not really west, but that's one. Transylvania County, Jackson County, Watauga, Mitchell, and Yancey County have formed one group. And we have Haywood County. And I want you to look around, and you will find that there are some that we didn't call. We have some visitors here from Gaston County. And we want you to know that this movement is not just something that just happened. It's something that will continue to grow because you're here to make it happen and make it grow. Thank you.
The NAACP chapters are the links to a growing chain. If you do not belong to a chapter in your area, please join the NAACP in your area. It's very important. Membership is important. We need your participation. We need your membership in NAACP. So there are tables all around here representing each county that we just named. It doesn't cost but $30 for a year. Go sign up. Join an NAACP chapter.
Thank you. Our next speaker is the Reverend Joe Hoffman from First Congregational United Church of Christ.
Hello, my friends. Good to see you again. You know, we did this last year, and again today we gather in this public square, this place where all voices of this community have the constitutional right to be heard. And we come to name that many of our voices, that there's been an effort to try to silence us. And we're going to not let that happen. Even in a democracy in which leaders think they know what is best for us, even without asking our thoughts or opinions, we're going to say that's not our way. We just had a budget passed. There was no time for public comment. That's been the truth with Asheville water, with public education, with environmental concerns like coal ash, and so much more. So I want to tell you what I think. I think a healthy political system depends upon a healthy and strong public, and we are the public. We together have the power to make a difference, and we do that through conversation and honest and respectful debate. We might not agree with each other, but that is our democratic process. I know a lot of people that are my friends who have stopped listening to the news and don't even know about Moral Mondays because they think there is no good news. But we're here to say something different tonight. We're here to say we can make a difference, we will make a difference, and we need everybody's help to do that. Terry Tempest Williams, that incredible African-American writer, has said, "The human heart is the first home of democracy. It's where we raise our questions. It's where we hold the tensions of our democratic life. It's where we learn to bring our attention rather than just our opinions and our judgment so that we can work our way into a living democracy." So tonight, my friends, listen and learn what's going on and go from this place with your heart renewed and energized to talk to your neighbors, to embrace the stranger, to feed the hungry, even to love your enemy, because that's what a public does. Go and vote. Your voice makes a difference. And faith communities in particular, find a way to talk about these issues. Do not tell people how to vote, but talk about the issues that are in front of us. When I read the history of the civil rights, I am shocked and surprised at how many faith communities didn't find the courage to talk. Let us be different. Let's talk about what we need to talk about. Let's vote. Let's raise our voice. Let's make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Dr. Barber is going to be here in a little while. And while we're waiting, I have a lovely list of folks who are going to talk to you about some of the issues that are facing Western North Carolina today. I want to remind you that we do have these lovely t-shirts for sale. You can use them while you're volunteering to register people to vote for the Mountain People's Assembly. See, it says Vote 2014 right there on the back. And now I'd like to invite Barry Summers, Dr. David Trigg, and Lindsay First to come forward and speak.
For anyone who doubts whether control of water is a moral issue, look no further than the city of Detroit. It's unconscionable that in the 21st century, an American city is denying clean drinking water to the most vulnerable and poorest citizens in their midst. Water is not a source of profit or a means to balance your budget after you've cut taxes for the wealthy. In the state of North Carolina, there are those who seek to wrench control of this resource away from the people and give it to the state, and from there to those who would seek to use it for profit. And they're starting with the city of Asheville. Well, the city of Asheville has won the first round. The state seizure of municipal water is unconstitutional. But they're not going to give up, and neither will we. If you want to help Asheville, if you want to help the rest of the state, join us in November and go to the polls and tell them water for people, not for profit. Thank you.
Hello, I'm David Trigg. I'm a physician from Jackson County where I work in the Good Samaritan Clinic. At this free clinic, we see some of the people who are uninsured, who are not yet currently eligible for Medicaid, who have low income, sometimes working more than one job, and still have no health insurance. I'd like to talk to you about Medicaid expansion. In states that have adopted the Medicaid expansion, many more people have access to preventative care and early intervention. I want to tell you a story about a real person, not a statistic. I was talking recently with another doctor who told me about a tragic case of a patient with advanced cancer. This cancer might have been easily treated if the patient had sought medical attention in the early stages of the disease, but now would require radical surgery that would result in a disfiguring and disabling outcome. This patient had no insurance, no Medicare, no Medicaid. In the early stages of this disease, the patient might have been eligible for Medicaid if North Carolina had not rejected Medicaid expansion. Without Medicaid expansion, many more people will be falling through very big cracks in the system. Why did North Carolina legislators vote to refuse federal monies? Why throw away this money? Why attack Medicaid? Why attack low-income people in need of medical care? Would they have blocked Medicaid expansion just despite the president? Yes. This is morally indefensible. Rejecting Medicaid is not just morally indefensible, it's fiscally irresponsible. The financial impact of refusing Medicaid expansion is staggering. Medicaid expansion would have added $15 billion health care dollars to the North Carolina hospitals, create nursing jobs, EMS jobs, as many as 25,000 jobs in the next 2 years. What on earth would motivate a legislator to risk economic and fiscal costs, more importantly, to risk unnecessary human suffering? As people of faith, as people of common decency, we must remind ourselves, we must remind our representatives in Raleigh, we have a responsibility to our fellow human beings. We can remind them by showing up and voting this November. It is our duty to tell our representatives to move beyond self-interest, to move beyond the self-interest or the interest of extremist millionaires and billionaires, and to the interest of all the people of North Carolina, especially the most vulnerable among us. Thank you.
I'm a public school teacher. I'm also a taxpayer and a parent, a woman and a worker. And I'm one face of public assistance. As an employed teacher, I never expected to use a Medicaid card to pay for my children's checkups, or run into my school colleagues in the WIC office. I also never expected a state senator to look me in the face and say it's because we're not doing our jobs. No, Senator. Our job is to provide an excellent education, and we do. Your job is to allocate the funding to make it happen. Instead, you steal money from public schools to pay for tax cuts for corporations. We get an unsustainable budget that doesn't bring many teachers up to their promised salaries of 2008. How will we keep master teachers in our classrooms. Don't try to tell us you're increasing money for education. We teach math. We must demand a fully funded public education for every student. We will never agree to cuts from education to pay for education. We will never agree to cuts from some essential services to cover other essential services. End the manufactured myth of a funding crisis. We can meet all our obligations if our elected officials reinstate reasonable, responsible taxes. I know there are school workers out here today. I saw them marching, and I know, there they are, I know every person that works in a school would step in front of any threat to our students, in front of gunmen, in front of attackers, in front of bullies. Our students are in danger. They are being bullied. The threat might not look the same, but it is real and it has real consequences. When public dollars are lost to private schools, children lose reading coaches and librarians. When funding doesn't increase with costs, children share outdated textbooks and technology. When bus routes are cut, children miss school. When the opportunity and equity that come from a public education are lost, our children are irreparably harmed. School workers see the effects of Raleigh's bad policy on our students' faces every day. Our working conditions are their learning conditions. Every issue that affects North Carolina is a student issue. We have students whose parents are wage workers, so living wage is a student issue. We have students and parents who are gay, so LGBTQ equality is a student issue. We have students and parents on Medicaid. Access to Medicaid is a student issue. Our students need places to live and water to drink, so fair and affordable housing is a student issue. Environmental justice is a student issue. Women's justice is a student issue. Racial justice is a student issue. We teach our students to stand up to bullies even when they're our friends. Public education should have no party line. We must vote out those that play politics with our students' futures. In November, step into a voting booth to stand up for the children of North Carolina. Last year, we collected some money from y'all, and I wanted to let you know what we did with some of that money. Some of it is footing the bill for this fabulous rally. Some of it sent 5 buses that some of you were on to the Mass Moral March in February. Some of it supported our coalition partners in various different activities that they were doing over the year, and some of it helped with voter registration and will continue to do so. So I want you to keep your eye out starting right now for a blue bucket that looks like that's going to be coming by. I'd like you to think about putting some money in there. And when you put some money in there, pull out, one of those bills and then see what's next to it and pull that next one out and put a couple more in, and just because there are a lot of voters to be registered and there's a lot of work to be done, and we need your support. I also want to let you know that circulating through the crowd here and probably mostly on the sides are folks that you'll see in these yellow shirts with big blue buttons, and in those blue Moral Freedom Summer shirts, and those people are registering voters and collecting names for volunteers for those of you who would like to register voters yourselves if you are already registered. So please look for the blue bucket that's about to start coming around. Actually, I see them moving now. And the yellow shirt and the blue shirt. Alrighty? Thank you so much. Let those buckets go.
The buckets are coming. Let your wealth flow.
Was on my shoulders, pressure to break or retreat at every turn. Oh, facing the fear that the truth I discovered. No telling how all this will work out, but I've come too far to go back now. I'm looking for freedom, looking for freedom, and to find it cost me everything I have. Well, I'm looking for freedom, I'm looking for freedom, yeah, and to find it may take everything I have. Oh, I know all too well it don't come easy. The chains of the world, they seem to move in tide. Oh, I try to walk around it, but stumbling so familiar. Yeah, try to get up, but the doubt is so strong. There's gotta be a weight in my bones. I'm looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it cost me everything I have. Oh, I'm looking for freedom. I'm looking for freedom. And to find it may take everything I have. Oh, I'm not giving up. Has always been hard, so hard. But I don't do things the easy way. I won't give up. Time
Ewart to come forward and speak.
My name is Reverend Jasmine Beach Ferrara, and I'm the director of the Campaign for Southern Equality. I grew up here in North Carolina, raised by a single mom who worked as a nurse. Many months, it was tight to make rent. But every day I heard the same message from my mom, my pastor, and my teachers in the public schools I attended. That message was that you can do whatever you dream of. Every day, they taught me basic values. Be kind, work hard, help those who are suffering. But when I came out as gay as a teenager, that message of possibility was twisted into a message of fear because of who I had grown up to be. From the pulpit, preachers condemned people like me. And through its laws, North Carolina made clear that I would be judged not on the basis of my character, but rather on the basis of who I loved. Right now, my friends, our state is sending this message to so many of us, to immigrants and their children, to those relying on Medicaid for health care and public funding for HIV treatment, to women needing reproductive health care. For those who hear this message, for all of us, our fates are linked because we live our lives on the margins. We are linked to one another because we know the corrosive effects of injustice. And most of all, we are linked because we know the resilience of the human spirit. Linked fates alone do not ensure our commitment to one another. To achieve this higher aim, we must build a movement upon this basis. And I could not be more grateful to Reverend Dr. Barber and the North Carolina NAACP for their visionary leadership in doing this. Our work in this movement is not about winning on a single issue. It is about transforming North Carolina. So while I am overjoyed that Amendment 1 will soon be struck down, and while I am overjoyed that marriage equality is on the horizon, and that my 5-week-old son will grow up knowing that his family is equal, our work does not end there. Our work together is about ensuring that the laws of North Carolina reflect the highest ideals of democracy, equality and justice for all. Our work together is about ensuring that our hometowns reflect the highest values of community, to love our neighbor, to set a place at the table for the stranger among us, to ensure that every child is loved and safe. This is North Carolina we are fighting for, and nothing matters more right now. And I'm here to tell you today that the LGBT community is in this movement every step of the way and as long as it takes. We are part of every race, every church, every neighborhood, every school. We are immigrants and citizens. We are young and old. We are black, brown, and white. We are male, female, and transgender. We are poor, middle class, and wealthy. Together, we are North Carolina, and we are ready for equality. We are North Carolina, and we are ready to organize. We are North Carolina, and we are ready to vote. We are North Carolina, and we are ready for love to win. Thank you.
Speech in Spanish first. Tomemos el tiempo de recordar la herencia y sabiduría que nos dejó las palabras de Martin Luther King. Tengo un sueño que un día esta nación se levantará y vivirá el verdadero significado de su credo. Nosotros sostenemos como evidente esta verdad. Todos los hombres son creados iguales. Desafortunadamente seguimos sin tener esa igualdad para todos. Se aproximan las fechas para votar y su voz y voto pueden hacer la diferencia. Es tiempo de honrar los deseos constitucionales de nuestra Constitución al utilizar el privilegio de votar para asegurar que todo constituyente goce de los mismos derechos que los demás. La necesidad de una reforma inmigratoria solo se hará presente a través de sus votos. La falta de reforma inmigratoria tiene a miles de niños muriendo para cruzar la frontera. La falta de reforma inmigratoria separa familias. La falta de reforma inmigratoria injustamente le niega igualdad educacional a los estudiantes indocumentados. Y aquí, en Carolina del Norte, los estudiantes son forzados a matricularse a un costo 3 veces más alto que los otros estudiantes. Además de hacerlos esperar en línea para poder registrarse a sus clases sin acceso ninguno a beneficio financiero o préstamos bancarios. La falta de reforma inmigratoria me trata como un estudiante de segunda clase, al valer leyes estatales que dicen que yo no soy igual. Viví la discriminación que vivió algún día Rosa Parks al ser mandada a sentarse a la última fila de un autobús, simplemente por ser de una raza que en su tiempo se consideraba inferior. Recuerdo la frustración al sentir que mis sueños se esfumaban y la determinación y el valor que tuve que desarrollar al enfrentarme al gigante de la injusticia social. Pero al recordar la historia de los derechos civiles y la batalla que algún día lucharon los afroamericanos me armé de valor. Su derecho a votar tiene el poder de permitirle a los demás las oportunidades y la felicidad que todos tenemos el derecho de obtener. Voten porque es importante, pero sobre todo voten por aquellos como yo y como los 11 millones que viven en las sombras, sin voto pero con mucha voz. Con mi voz y con el corazón en la mano, les pido que tomemos la decisión de votar por aquellos que apoyan una reforma inmigratoria para honrar nuestra Constitución, que todo hombre y mujer fueron creados igual. Let us take the time to remember the inheritance and wisdom of Dr. Martin Luther King. Now I say to you today, my friends, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Dr. Martin Luther King reminds us all men and women are created equal. However, that doesn't mean we all have the same rights. As we grow closer to being able to voice our votes in a difficult time, it is time to uphold the constitutional desires of our founding fathers. The only way to do that is by employing our privilege to vote and granting law-deserving individuals the same right. Immigration needs to be addressed on all fronts, but more so at the polls. The lack of immigration reform has thousands of innocent children dying to cross the border. The lack of immigration reform keeps undocumented immigrants from their families and propagates family separation through heartless deportations. The lack of immigration reform in North Carolina alienates students and denies this growing student population educational equality, and also forces students to pay out-of-state tuition without access to financial aid, student loans, or any other benefits, and defers and denies students their dreams of a higher education and a better quality of life. The lack of immigration reform made me wait in line to register for classes because state legislation says I'm not equal. I experienced discrimination firsthand, and in a Rosa Parks-like scenario was thrown to the back of the list for registering for classes, although I was paying 3 times more to attend community college out of my own pocket. I remember hardly scraping up enough money for $800 monthly tuition payments. That experience is unforgettable because it's made me stronger. After 2 years, the time came to transfer to a private college at a commutable distance, where I paid $1,800 a month and commuted more than 45 minutes without a license. But I found the strength, faith, and determination to face the giant, also known as social injustice. I looked back through the pages of history and I found hope and encouragement. The lack of immigration reform allows for the same inhumane treatment of the individuals that brought upon the civil rights movement supported by the NAACP. Once more, it is time to take a stand, and we can do it at the polls. Your alien has the power to grant others the pursuit of happiness we are all equally entitled to. So vote because it matters, but most importantly, vote for those who can't, so that we may live out the meaning of our creed that all men and women were created equal.
Hey y'all! My name is Ethiopia Ewart, and I'm a single mother experiencing poverty. I live in Hillcrest Apartments, a public housing neighborhood here in Asheville, and I'm extremely concerned about the imprudent decisions made by the North Carolina General Assembly last year. These decisions had led to laws that attack people who are experiencing poverty, especially women, children, and people of color. These laws also attack local government authority, public education, environmental protection, and voters and tenants' rights. These attacks affect me and my community greatly. Many of my neighbors are single women of color who are struggling to find employment or are working low-wage jobs while striving to support their families. Yet we find our unemployment benefits cut, our access to health care dismantled through the rejection of Medicaid expansion, and our earned income tax credits erased. There's also a great need for support systems such as self-sufficiency programs and affordable quality child care to be in place in assisting us in our climb out of poverty. Yet, these programs have been cut, leaving many families in North Carolina even more marginalized economically. And as we mothers endeavor to make ends meet, we are met with public disdain and contempt for being poor. This leaves us not only increasingly disenfranchised, but also increasingly disenchanted. But we are far from hopeless. We are far from hopeless. We have hope that the people of this beautiful state will stand for justice for all people by voting wisely this upcoming election. We raise our voice today to say that our elected officials have a responsibility to us. Let us not forget, let us never forget that our government is a democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people. So as we head to the polls this November, we must not be comforted or pacified by the promise of better education or tax cuts that will supposedly grow our economy. We, the people, must be active in making sure that the promise of a better America is evidenced through policy. Policy from which we can see positive results. It's not enough to vote for a candidate because they share the same political party. For women and people of color, the right to vote was won through great sacrifice, and that included the loss of many lives. And that right is still being threatened today. We cannot be capricious with our vote. Let us be prudent and elect those who truly support all North Carolinians in the pursuit of happiness. And let's do that, y'all! Let's be prudent and hold our elected officials accountable for what they are doing. It's up to us.
Most of you probably know where Yancey and Mitchell County are. We're in the heart of the mountains, and it's probably the last place in the world that anybody would think there would be a branch of the NAACP. Most people want to think that our branch is made up of outsiders, troublemakers, but they need to look at our membership. Our membership is the face of the new Yancey and Mitchell counties.
values that love their families, love their neighbors, and love the land, and mind their own business. And we have a saying in Yancey and Mitchell County, you don't poke the bear. Well, these extremists in Raleigh have poked the bear. When they gutted education, they poked the bear. When they cut benefits for unemployment, they poked the bear. And when they denied medical care for our friends, our family, our neighbors, they poked the bear. And Yancey and Mitchell County is tired of being poked. It's time to fight back, because everybody knows whenever you poke the bear, you fight back. Today, it is my great honor to introduce a man who is leading the fight for the people who poke the bear. This is a man who is fighting for the real values of North Carolina. The values my parents taught by example and I learned in Sunday school in a little church on a hill. The real mountain values of love, not hate, hope, not despair. The mountain values of acceptance, not exclusion, hospitality, and taking care of the least of these. A man who has shown that he doesn't compromise his principles because the going gets tough, and who is not afraid to speak truth to power, and who is not afraid to go to the very seat of that power and overturn the tables of the money changers who have turned the people's house into a den of corruption and greed. A man who is leading the fight for opportunities for all of North Carolina. Let us welcome Dr. Reverend William Barber.
Come on, y'all. Let me hear you say it. Ain't no stopping us now. Ain't no stopping us now. Can y'all sing it? Come on, clergy, come on, come on. Y'all ready? They're gonna stop the music. You keep singing. Yeah. That's it. Nobody. Listen. Cut the music. Let the people sing. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the road. Ain't no stopping us now. We're on the road. Somebody scream in the mountains. It's good to be here with all of you. And let me thank my dear friend and president. I know that shocked somebody. Let me thank the Morrow Mountain People's Assembly. Isaac Coleman and Reverend Lisa Bovey Kemper and Elaine Light and Carmen Ramos Kennedy and Vicki Meath and Elder Hayes with the local NAACP and all of you who gathered here this day. We're so glad to be here, and I bring you greetings from everywhere throughout this state and the nation, where people are saying, thank God for Morrow Monday, forward together, not one step back. My dear friends in the clergy who gathered here, and all of the young people in the audience as well. A few years ago, I had a conversation with a great soul from these mountains. I've come to love these mountains, though I was born almost near sea level, or at least raised. My friend was Senator Martin Nesbitt. It was early on when the Forward Together movement first started 8 years ago. And thousands had marched on Raleigh when Democrats were in office to challenge them to remember the good of the whole. And while we had criticism, they would at least meet with you and be reasonable. Afterwards, Brother Nesbitt and I had a conversation not about Democrats, not about Republicans, even though he knew how to work on both sides of the aisle. He knew how to work with people who had the best interests and progress of North Carolina in their minds. But that's not what we talked about. We talked about the moral vision of public service some 3 years ago. Before he passed, we talked about values and progress and using political power to empower the people to build a better state. And then we had this conversation about the similarities between progressive mountain populism that believes you don't kick people when they are down. You care for your neighbors. You care for their well-being. And that progressive mountain populism believes that we should work every day and use our positions, our power, our prestige, and our personhood to build a fair and justice community for everybody. And then we talked about how in civil rights activism, we believe in love for fellow man and equal protection under the law and ensuring a just community. And we noted that day in our conversation that there was not a lot of difference between civil rights activism and progressive mountain populism, because we all believe in justice, fair play, treating people right, and using political power for a better society. These are great principles. They're rooted in our deepest moral virtues. Whether it's in the ancient Jewish prophet Isaiah, reminding us, woe unto those who make unjust laws and rob the poor of their rights and make women and children their prey, or the words of Jesus declaring that nations and societies, not merely individuals, will be judged by how we care for the least of these, or our national constitution that makes establishing justice and caring for the general welfare the first principles of a true democracy, or our own state constitution that has etched in its command that all political power should only be used for the good of the whole, that life, liberty, and the enjoyment of the fruit of your own labor and happiness are self-evident rights guaranteed by our Creator, that public education is a constitutional right, that equal protection under the law must be guaranteed. And in North Carolina's Constitution that was written 146 years ago, it says the first duty of the state is how it provides charity, benevolence, and ensures the welfare to the poor. These are sacred values. I believe that deep within our being now there is a longing for a moral compass in our state, even in our nation. For those of us who are moved by the cries of our brothers and our sisters, we know that like justice, the acts of caring for the vulnerable, embracing the stranger, healing the sick, protecting water workers, welcoming and being fair to all members of the human family, and educating all children should never be relegated to the margins of our social consciousness. These are not policy issues. These are not issues for some left versus right debate. These are the centerpieces of our deepest tradition, of our faith, our values, and our sense of morality and righteousness. We need a recovery of our moral compass. And the truth be told, it is against these values that the current policies are being implemented in our General Assembly. The extremist Tea Party legislators, led by Governor McCrory, Speaker Tillis, and Senate Leader Berger, and their colleagues, 4 of them from up here in these mountains, who call themselves Republicans, but who have governed as far-right extremists. And what they are doing falls woefully short of our deepest and most sacred moral values. If we didn't love them, we wouldn't tell the truth. If we didn't love North Carolina, we wouldn't tell the truth. McCrory, understand, we don't want you to go down on the wrong side of history. Tillis, we don't want you to go down on the wrong side of history. Berger, we don't want you to go down. Moffitt, Abracadabra, we don't want you, but we must tell you the truth. You're wrong. You're wrong. In fact, let me go as far to say you're wrong for even calling yourselves Republicans. Now let me say why we don't refer to them as Republican, but instead as extremists. And why we don't see this as merely a battle between Republicans and Democrats, because we know progressive, sensible Republicans, some of them went to jail with us. Abraham Lincoln, who stood for equality and justice, was a sensible Republican. Black and white Republicans who in the 1800s expanded voting rights and educational opportunity to those who had been enslaved. They were Lincoln Republicans. They rewrote the Constitution. They were reasonable Republicans. My granddaddy was a reasonable Republican who fought in World War I from the mountains of West Virginia. Teddy Roosevelt was a reasonable Republican who called for health care and a minimum and a living wage and protection of the environment. Dwight Eisenhower, who right after the Brown versus Board of Education case said that public education was a matter of national security, and he invested more money in education than any other president before him. He was a reasonable Republican. Republicans and Democrats alike signed off on the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Oh, don't mess with us. We know our history. Black Republicans like Edward Brooks and Ralph Bunche and Benjamin Hooks, and past president of the NAACP, championed the cause of justice and freedom and policies against poverty and stood up to the extremists of their time. Even Ronald Reagan supported earned income tax credit. So when these legislators don't even support earned income tax credit, they aren't Republicans because they make Ronald Reagan look like a liberal. In North Carolina, there was a history of Republicans and Democrats like Holshouser who put more money into rural economic development, working for the common good. But now the party has been hijacked by extremists who are using their temporary power trying to do permanent damage. And that is why this, my friend, that you see being streamed all over the nation today is no mere hyperventilation. It is no mere partisan gathering. Oh no, this is a fight for the future and the soul of our state. And it does not matter what the critics call us. They can deride us, they can deflect us, because they cannot debate us. They can't make their case on moral and constitutional ground. And you don't have to call us. You can call us a liberal, a bunch of liberals. You can call us communists, but it's not what you call us, it's what we answer to. And we know who we are. We are black. We are white, we are Latino, we are Native American, we are Democrat, we are Republican, we are independent, we are people of faith, we are people not of faith, who believe in a moral universe. We are Native, we are immigrants, we are business leaders, we are workers, we are doctors, we are the uninsured, we are gay, we are straight, we are students, we are retirees. We stand here, a quilt of many colors. We are united in our efforts to fight for the soul of our state. We know who we are. We are the mountains. We are the coastlands. We are North Carolina. We are America. This is what democracy looks like. This fight is about the moral center of our body politics. Corey Tillerson Burger and their extremist colleagues had a premeditated agenda. And what's sad is that their agenda is so simple in its imagination that it's scary. It's scary to think that they actually believe what they're selling. Because in essence, this is what their policies say, and this is what they want us to believe. According to them, if you want a North Carolina where the weak grow strong and the strong grow great, then here's how you get there. According to them, cut and dismantle and deny opportunity to public education, hurt teachers, drive North Carolina funding to almost last in the nation, and give public school dollars to private schools. According to them, if you want a great state, deny health care and Medicaid expansion, especially to the elderly, the disabled, the blind, the children, the poor, and the working poor, and do it in a way that 500,000 people will not be eligible. Do it in a way that closes rural hospitals. Do it in a way that undermines what Republicans and Democrats did 60 years ago with the Hill-Burton Act when they first funded rural hospitals. Do it in such a way that a young lady who sat in Tom Tillis's office a few weeks ago and was arrested is a full-time worker, a mother, works on minimum wage, who has cervical cancer. He wouldn't even come meet with her. And she could have gotten coverage under Medicaid expansion. But now she has to choose between feeding her children, going without insurance, and possibly dying. They claim that's the way to a better North Carolina. They say, raise taxes on 89% of North Carolinians, so you can give a tax break to 11%. And make sure you raise the sales tax so you can really hurt working poor people and poor people. They say if you want a great North Carolina, take and deny earned income tax credit. And by the way, that has meant that 30,000 people in Buncombe, Hayward, Yancey, Mitchell, and Madison County alone lost their earned income tax credit. They claim if you want a great North Carolina, take unemployment from those who lost their jobs for no fault of their own. And if you really want a great North Carolina, stand against labor rights, stand against women's rights, stand against LGBT rights, and stand against fair immigration rights. And then if you really want a great North Carolina, take your orders from the Tea Party and the American Legislative Exchange Council. And after you've done that, and after you've created division, and after you've turned people against one another, if you really want a great North Carolina, they say pass the worst voter suppression bill since Jim Crow, change 40 laws, roll back our electoral processes, and undermine access for women, for students, for Latinos, for African Americans, and the poor, and then lie and say you did it all because you want voter integrity. Their entire agenda falls and fails the test of our deepest values. Despite the fact that McCory, Tillis, and Berger and their followers are claiming now we are seeing a Carolina comeback. Well, we can see too. And we must come down on the side of reality over rhetoric, and the real numbers demonstrate that we're not in the middle of a Carolina comeback, we are in the middle of a Carolina setback. We know better. And so now, after you all pointed out what they were doing, now they're trying to pull the okie dokie. You know, the midterm elections are coming. And they're trying to make Mr. Tillis look like a moderate. Too late. Too late. Too late. No matter how many times Mr. Tillis says he's a moderate, if your policies are regressive, if your budget is mean, if what you did last year is still impacting this year, and if you refuse to repeal it, then you are no moderate. You are an extremist. Oh, I had an uncle that used to say, if you water like a duck and you quack like a duck, then you must be a duck. You gotta own it now, Mr. Tillis. Somebody else out that I heard say you can put a leash on a rattlesnake and call it a poodle, but it'll still bite you. Oh, don't be fooled. Truth is, in this session, they didn't repeal any of the damage that they had already done. In fact, let me tell you how they're talking. In a News and Observer article the other day, one of their legislators said it. This is the arrogance. I think we have passed enough controversial legislation last session to last us for a while. That's right. So we're able to do just the necessary stuff this time. That's Representative Edgar Starnes, the House Republican leader from Hickory. You passed enough legislation for the last, you think? They're trying to spin this as a battle between the kinder and gentler House and Speaker Tillis versus the staunch ideologues in the Senate. That's nothing more than bait and switch. Touch your neighbor and say, they must be high on some of that Mountain Dew or something to think we're gonna believe that. See, if you're an extremist to the 10th power and you then decide to be an extremist to the 9th power, you're still an extremist. Let me tell you what happened. It's gamesmanship. They saw your protest. That's what happened. They saw the poll numbers. 55% of North Carolinians oppose taking unemployment. 58% of North Carolinians say accept Medicaid expansion. 61% of North Carolinians oppose using public school money for vouchers to privatize schools. 55% of North Carolinians oppose cutting corporate taxes and taxes for the wealthy and then raising sales taxes. 68% of North Carolinians oppose cutting early voting and straight ticket voting. And 55% of North Carolinians oppose fracking and oppose coal ash and oppose undermining environmental protection. If I was at church, I'd say slap your neighbor a high five and tell them they must be out of their mind. And so this legislature didn't want Tillis to have to face the voters without doing something to try to look moderate. You know, he had to do something to raise our embarrassingly low teacher pay. But interestingly enough, they raised pay for teachers by cutting education. So they're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, they're robbing Paul to pay Paul. In fact, they're trying to rob Jesus. Don't they realize that teachers can add and subtract? They took $76 million from the state university system to try to make up a hole created by their unnecessary tax cut. Don't they know that a teacher who gets a 7% raise and then a 3% cut can figure out that it isn't a 7% raise anymore? The extremists still refuse to expand Medicaid. The House spent 3 years attacking Medicaid, but blocked the Senate proposal. Yeah, right, sure. That's supposed to make us happy? No. And that's why even a Republican mayor in Belhaven has taken on these policies. And with Bob Zellner, walked 273 miles to Washington, D.C. last week to dramatize. To dramatize as a conservative why extremist policies concerning Medicaid expansion are wrong. Despite all of the fictions and the contradiction, you may be tempted to think that the right-wing extremists in the General Assembly have had a Damascus Road conversion experience, but don't you believe that? The budget they passed includes another round of tax cuts for the wealthy and big corporations. But it only takes place after January, after the election is over. You know, it's like waiting until New Year's and then boxing up your children's meager Christmas gifts and mailing them back. And even one ranking Republican senator made an outstanding claim. Listen at the hypocrisy in the language. She said the budget was great, but I'm not sure we can sustain it. And she was one of the 4 Republicans that voted against the budget. One of our Moral Monday speakers, where is she at? She's a teacher out there. Where is she at? Came down to Raleigh. Was that you that came to Raleigh? It was another one that came to Raleigh and spoke. Where's the one? She has some connections to Republican families. She's out here somewhere. And she said something that I'm going to repeat. She said the people of North Carolina are not stupid. And so, my friends, that is why our movement has power. An agenda of love and hope. We believe that North Carolina can have a pro-labor, anti-poverty policies that create economic sustainability by fighting for employment and living wages and the alleviation of disparate unemployment and a green economy and labor rights and affordable housing and targeted empowerment zones and strong safety net services for the poor and fair policies for immigrants and infrastructure development and fair tax reform. We can do this in North Carolina. Yes. We don't have to go down this road. In North Carolina, we believe we can have educational equality by ensuring every child receives a high-quality, well-funded, constitutional, diverse public education. That we celebrate our teachers. That our children have access to community colleges and universities. We can do this in North Carolina. We believe in North Carolina we can have health care for all by ensuring access to the Affordable Care Act and Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, and that we can protect our environment and protect our lives. We can do this. We believe in North Carolina we can have fairness in the criminal justice system by addressing the continuing inequalities in the system and providing equal protection under the law for black, brown, and poor white people. We can do this. Yes. And we believe in North Carolina we can protect and expand voting rights and women's rights and LGBT rights and immigrants' rights and the fundamental principle of equal protection under the law. a sustained moral and constitutional critique. Somebody say 67 weeks.
67 weeks.
For 67 weeks since last April. And if you add the 7 years prior to that, that's 8 years and 15 weeks. Over 125 different actions. With our transformative coalition, we have built and we have reached out to unlikely allies. And you should be proud today that because of your actions, we have shifted the center of political gravity in our state. Everybody in the nation is talking about you. 1,000 people got arrested for civil disobedience. 1,000 clergy have joined our ranks. 80,000 people, more than any march since Selma, showed up in February. Our lawyers are fighting in the courts. 47 young people are in 50 counties registering votes from now till the election. When we started, the governor was at 50% in the poll. Now he's under 30% and falling. When we started, the legislature was at 40% in the poll. Now they're at 18% and falling. We are not losing, we are winning. We are shifting the center of political gravity. Oh my God, the scripture says, we are not of those who shrink back unto destruction, but we are those who persevere unto the salvation of the soul, because faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. The costs are too high. Somebody say the costs are too high. If we don't address systemic racism and poverty, the costs are too high when we deny living wages and leave whole communities impoverished. The cost is too high when our nation attacks teachers and undermines public education. The cost is too high when we suppress the right to vote. And we are not willing to let North Carolina pay that price because the cost is too high. And that's why we can't turn back now. Turn to 3 people and say, we can't turn back now. And that's why today is not just Moral Monday, but it's the moral march to the polls. Oh my God. Because 2014 must be an election on, not an election off. We must blow the mind of MSNBC and CNN. When November comes, we must make them see we ain't never seen nothing like this before. And so I come today to ask you, will you call on everybody to register at least 10 to 15 new registered voters? Will you go get the 200,000 white women who voted in 2008 but didn't vote in 2010 and tell them, come on, my sister? Will you go get the 400,000 African Americans who voted in 2008 but didn't vote in 2010 and say, what's up, my brother and my sister? It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time. It's time for the New South to rise again. Well, let me close. 51 years ago, when I was born, this nation was in a moral crisis. There were governors whose lips were dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. They were defying the 14th and the 15th and the Amendment of the Constitution. They were stuck along with their immoral allies in the attitudes of racism and classism. They had no shame. One of them even declared, in the name of the greatest people that have ever trod this earth, I draw the line in the dust and toss the gauntlet before the feet of tyranny. And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. In that moment, then, those who wanted to move forward were called outside agitators. During that time, violence accompanied the moral crisis. Mega was killed. Children were blown up in churches for simply wanting to go to integrated schools. Even a president who was no raving liberal was killed. White people were killed, like Viola LaRussa and James Reeb, a Unitarian preacher. But in that moment, the devotees of justice and freedom, they did not shrink back. I want you to remember that story and use it, Judy, as motivation today. They didn't have the money. They didn't have the political votes. They didn't have the majority of political opinion, but they did not shrink back. They marched. They organized. They built coalitions. They rallied young people. They engaged in civil disobedience. They lobbied. They turned moments of despair into movements of hope. They came together. They lifted up the moral and religious principles of justice and love and fairness. And they won. Oh yes, my parents were public educators, and they were a part of that generation. And they declared in 1963, after I was born, we can't turn back. They joined the moral crusade to change the nation and the world, and they did. They changed the immoral realities of racism and classism and the sins of injustice. They changed the world because they would not turn back. And I want to say to you today, we can't turn back now either. I want to say to you today, Ella Baker is not here. Martin Luther King is not here. John F. Kennedy is not here. Abraham Lincoln is not here. Our forefathers are not here. Our foremothers are not here. Cesar Chavez is not here. Elizabeth Candace Stanton is not here. But we are their children, and we are here. It is our birthright. It is our birthright. We were born to fight for what is right. And so, together, we will resist extremism. Yes. Together. Yes. We will lift our state where it belongs. Together, let's vote like never before. Together, let's organize. Together, let's speak truth to power. My Bible says that when Moses and his rod and his people got together, they changed systems of injustice, and Pharaoh had to come down. History tells me that when Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass and white abolitionists got together, they tore down the systems of slavery. History tells us that when black men and women and white men and women and Jews and Gentiles and Catholics got together to follow the dream of a better world, they broke the back of Jim Crow. History tells us that when Sojourner Truth and Sister Stanton got together, they won women the right to vote. And I heard that when mountain folk get together, you are a force to be reckoned with. Especially when somebody is crazy enough to poke the bear. But I want you to know that I don't just know about togetherness from the Bible or from history. A few years ago, my doctors thought I would never walk again. And I was in a wheelchair, and I was on a walker. And if it was back then, I could not do what I'm doing today. But I stopped by to tell you that when my doctors and my nutritionists got together, and my therapist got together, and when my family got together, and when my friends got together, and when my swim coach got together, and when my faith got together, and when my mind got together, and when the prayer warriors got together. can jump now. I can fight extremists now. Because when we all get together, when we get love together, and equality together, and humanity together, when we all get together, one a day, one a day, one a day, one a day of justice it will be. Grab your neighbor and say, neighbor, it's time, it's time, it's time to get together. Somebody say yeah. Don't you let anybody tell us what's not possible. Who here today? I wish my friend, where is she from? Mitchell County that came down 2 weeks ago. She's in this debris. Stacy? Tracy. Tracy, you here? Deaton, you here? If she has come up, but I want you, how many of you will commit to register 10 to 15 people to vote? Become your own registrar. How many of you know the folk that fought before us, they didn't have Twitter, they didn't have email, they didn't have Google, they didn't have Facebook, they didn't have a cell phone. We have all of that, and we can do better than even they were able to do. Now I want a little altar call. A voting, registration, and organizing altar call. I want 100 people. 100 people that are coming. Where I organize? Where the blue shirt organizers? Run up here. Stand right here. What county you with, babe? Transylvania. Huh? Iredale, Yancey Mitchell, Watauga, Asheville, Buncombe County. I'm good. I need 20 people, 20 that'll come and say, I'll come and help. You already from Buncombe. 20 people registering, 5 people a day for 10 weeks. That's 1,000 new registered voters. Somebody come from Buncombe out of the crowd and join. Is there somebody from Transylvania? Is there somebody from Mitchell? They need some help that'll help them move in some places. And we going everywhere. From the church altar to the barroom. It don't make no difference. We registering everybody. We want to pull them. Like some of y'all just come down symbolically. We'll catch some of you. Come on down if you'll help these young people. They're taking their whole summer. They could have worked and made a whole lot more money doing other things. Come here, y'all. Come on down, some of you, symbolically. How many of you have a voter registration application with you today? Where are they? We got some blank ones out there. Anybody got a blank one? We want you to get one before you leave. Now there's some 3 other speakers. Don't move. Madison County. Madison, somebody from Madison. You do it from Madison. All right. Y'all will come here a second. And while they're coming, just come quietly. Sign up. Everybody doesn't have to come. But while you're there, turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, if we all get together, if we all do this thing together, we can show the nation and the state a voter turnout like they have never seen before. Are y'all ready? Y'all are going to sing real briefly. Don't leave. We got 3 more speakers that you need to hear from, and then we'll be leaving. God bless you, Mountain Mall Monday. I love you. Love you.
jailhouse. No, 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 ain't gonna let no jailhouse. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up the freedom flag. Ain't gonna let nobody.
because we have 3 more speakers for you and we have some great music. So I want you to stick around and join the party. If you have a smartphone, I want to ask you to get that puppy out, and you have an option to text NAACP to 46988 to get more updates. And I'd also like you to go on Facebook and Twitter and all those things and use that hashtag Moral Monday. And if you have a chance to go on Facebook and look for the Power of 3, you'll discover a nice new initiative here in Buncombe County and Asheville for registering voters. So I thank you all for sticking around, and our next 3 speakers are going to be Judy Rhodes, Dot Rice, and Josue Verdugo.
Hello, I know a lot of you are leaving, so I just want to say a few things. The reason I'm here is because I'm a hybrid redneck. That's what I told them. I am. And that a hybrid redneck is somebody who, well, for me, it means I ate bear every Christmas when I was growing up. That's the truth. And I've eaten squirrel brains, and, but I can teach Chopin, so that, and Schumann, and I've had students get full scholarships for playing Rachmaninoff. I mean, so that's a hybrid redneck. So, also, I have never been an activist, ever. But when the governor did what he did, well, here I am. Because you know what? Us mountain people are kind of like a rattlesnake. Have you ever studied on a rattlesnake? I know Reverend Barber mentioned it. You can't put them on a leash. But a rattlesnake will not bite unless you really corner them. You don't want to corner a rattlesnake, and you don't want to corner mountain people. So here's the thing I want you to remember, and I'm going to hold this booger so you can really hear me. Here's the thing. We were losing the Revolutionary War until the British, everybody giving up. Did you know that? We were losing it. But then the British said, we're going to Watauga Colony, we're going to Western North Carolina, we're going to kill you. That is when my ancestors, and I'm telling you something, I've been here a long time. My family has been on my land for 7 generations. My family has been in Western North Carolina for 11 generations. Jackson County, you probably know my uncle, Candler Cook, maybe. I have relatives in Henderson County, Jackson County, Haywood County, Madison County, Buncombe County, all over. And we are just like that rattlesnake. We've been just minding our own business. We've been having our pig pickings, drinking our moonshine, drinking our sweet tea, eating our banana pudding, and saying, y'all just do whatever you want because we're happy over here on this mountain, until you come and try to poison our land. And I want to tell you that fracking is the bubonic plague of the 21st century. And we are going to march, just like they did in Revolutionary War, across this mountains. This is the one thing, I know I'm all for education, but this is the one thing that rednecks, all of us, we hunt, fish, boat, this puts us together. So I could go on and on about this, but that's what I wanted you to hear. We're going to march to the polls, just like they did with the Revolutionary War. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dot Rice. My family home is only a few miles from here. An EPA turned it into a Superfund site. It's one of the worst in the country. I am speaking today to you to tell our story and make sure what happened to us does not happen to you. It's a tale of environmental injustice that led to sickness and death, resulting from governmental abuse, exploitation, and neglect. Every day I pray that we will get it cleaned up, even after 24 years. EPA discovered contamination migrating onto my property in 1990, coming from the CTS of Asheville, Inc. Superfund site, and began after the state had warned them 2 times. EPA trespassed, it sampled on our property, and they withheld the results from us. We were left drinking contaminated water for 9 more years. EPA has spent more than $11 million with no cleanup. EPA, Region 4, and the state officials are truly at fault here. EPA didn't even admit trespassing on our property in 1990 until last year. Toxic springs on our property continue releasing dangerous levels of TCE known to cause cancer. The wildlife, birds, beneficial insects have mostly disappeared from our property. Our air is unsafe to breathe, and our land, home to 4 generations of rices, is worthless. My husband Larry is a retired Vietnam veteran. He has served his country for 42 years, awarded 2 Purple Hearts. Larry was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 1999. He has had 6 craniotomies, radiation implants, 3 shunts to drain fluid from his brain. My granddaughter, Devin, has a rare brain tumor. She has had countless spinal taps and surgeries to drain the fluid from her brain and lives in chronic pain. Devin is unable to look after her 15-year-old son. At 76, I care for my great-grandson and my disabled husband. EPA has blamed us for years for holding up progress. All we asked for them was to protect us from someone else's toxic waste, including testing the air my family was breathing. Our demands were validated this past June when my son Terry and 12 others were relocated by EPA due to the hazardous TCE vapors that they had been breathing. They are environmental refugees in Asheville. Every day we are consumed with anxiety from what has done to us and the impact of corporate pollution. Within 1 mile of our house, there's 50 cases of non-Hodgkin's disease and other cancers associated with TCE. We've seen too many friends and family die, and to think it could have all been prevented. Our community took a stand and is fighting back. We will continue to fight until the spread of pollution is stopped. EPA cleans the contamination at its source and the suffering ends. Our story, like many others, demonstrates why it's so important to elect candidates who will not turn their back on you. Demand environmental and health justice for everybody. Register to vote. Take others to the poll on November the 14th. Forward together, not one step back.
Melton Moral Monday, where are you? Everybody come together. Everybody come down. We have one more speaker. I'm Reverend Curtis Gatewood with the North Carolina NAACP. I'm the HKMJ Coalition Coordinator. We would like for everybody to come together, as Reverend Barber said, when we all come together. If we could come together for the last speaker, and then we're going to have music. So could you come together? If you're ready to come together, say yeah. Are you still fired up? Say yeah. If you're not going one step back, say yeah. If you're ready to register and organize and vote, say yeah. Say yeah. Are you fired up? When I say fired up, you say ready to vote. Fired up. Fired up. Fired up. Fired up.
Good afternoon. Well, he just took my introduction because I was going to say, fired up! Well, my name's Josue, and I'm a student at North Carolina State University, and I'm proud to call myself a North Carolinian today.
That's right.
2 years ago, young voters came out in large numbers to the polls as too much was at stake, such as affordable education, equal pay for equal work, and health care for all Americans. Together, we show that we, as young Americans, have leverage in the electoral process, and together, we can make a difference in our communities. Last year, the General Assembly adopted the Voter Information Verification Act. This law affects thousands of young voters across North Carolina. The law it makes it harder for thousands of people to vote, and it consists of 49 pages worth of provisions that makes it harder for everyone. Now local board of elections are eliminating on-campus voting locations such as Appalachian State and North Carolina State University.
Yes.
These laws and maneuvers to the election process impacts how we young people vote, but that should be a motivator to show up in massive numbers at the polls this year, no matter what. Young voters, we are needed in our communities again as too much is at stake. If we don't vote, that's another vote for more of the last 2 years.
That's right.
Such as more budget cuts for public schools, firing more teacher assistants, playing politics with our teachers' pay raises, and much more. Change and progress won't happen unless young voters participate in every election. not just 2014, but 2015 and 2016, and take back North Carolina. North Carolina deserves to have a government that actually listens to the concern of everyone, to all the governed. When young people vote, our communities will thrive. And when our communities thrive, middle-class families will prosper. Able, disabled, the elderly, and the poor will prosper. Young people will prosper. Small businesses will prosper. Minorities and women will move forward together. Young voters, we are part of this movement, and we need to restore our government back to the people. Together, we must get our message across, register voters, knock on doors, and get out the vote and move forward together. So are you fired up? Yeah! Are you ready to vote? Yeah! Fired up? Ready to vote! Fired up? Ready to vote! Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to call anyone who has a blue bucket to come forward over this way and gather together. If you see one of those blue buckets going by you, put a couple extra bucks in it for me. And I want to introduce our next music. We have Brian Claflin coming up and the Green Grannies, and I think West Sound is still here too, so stay for the party.
Don't you dare walk away, Asheville. We got a one more song for you. We're singing about fracking. And mountaintop removal. How y'all doing? 2 weeks ago in church, I debuted this song, and the congregation was going to do something terrible to me if I did not put a YouTube video up immediately. So they threatened me, so I did it. And my housemate used her iPhone, and we did it on the back porch in West Asheville, where I give guitar lessons. And we just recorded a studio version of this weekend. This is my friend Sarah Lynch, who's going to sing with me. She's been a mountaintop removal activist for a while. There's not a lot of that going on in North Carolina, but if you turn on your electricity, you're doing it from coal that was taken by decimating entire mountain ranges, a lot in West Virginia and throughout this whole region. And when I heard about the fracking legislation coming through, I figured it applied just as well to that in terms of the environmental impact and the effect on human lives and habitat as well. They've been tearing down voters' rights, women's rights, water rights, and a whole lot else, so we're going to take it back. This is called Tearing My Mountain Down. Goes, says the chair of the board and the CEO in the biggest house in the nicest part of town. Gotta stop him before it's too late, for the Royal Duke of the Tar Heel State is tearing my mountain down. With a violent shudder and a sudden flash, this valley's caked in a cloud of ash, turning drinking wells and the whole damn river brown. Now the threshold of this cabin home's painted over with the skull and bones. They're tearing my mountain down. They're tearing my mountain down. With deep self preaching your faith in creation, yet you desecrate this highest ground. So forgive me if I find it odd you call yourself a man of God as you tear his mountains down. It's with a lightning bolt and a clap of thunder, which hill would he tear asunder? Sinai's highest peak or the Sermon Mount? And whose water would he turn to brine for the state to clean on the public's dime? They're tearing our mountains down. They're tearing our mountains down. Now don't say you have not been warned. From the smell of sulfur from the coming storm, through the yellow sky can you hear that fearsome sound? Each lawless law from well-spent bribes, brick by brick and lie by lie. If you don't turn this coal train round, we'll tear your state house down. To another home where now they stay. No longer may we hear their joyful sound. This trail we're climbing may be steep, but all will be lost if they keep on tearing our mountain down. So may our children lead the way to save this land for another day, from the man in the biggest, nicest house in town. And God willing, we will soon be free. No longer may they ever be tearing our mountain down. They're tearing our